really wonderful. So welcome everyone. I think we'll start now.
We'll start.
My name's Jnanavaca. No,
We're not going to get very far. I'm Jnanavaca. I'm going to have to take control. My name's Jnanavaca. This is Maitreyabandhu.
yeah,
He's going to lead meditation, and I'm going to say a little bit about what I want to talk about.
yeah. So slightly excitable vibe in here in the London Buddhist Centre. So let's start by doing a short meditation just to calm down a bit and to discover what our name is. And then, I'll say a little bit about my own sense of where, what's happening in my life. You might say that, and then we'll pitch into a conversation about the way things are.
And there's going to be quite a lot of time for questions, so keep asking questions as we talk.
And Sanjay will collect questions and then we'll ask us. So there's plenty of time for questions. But for now, let's close our eyes. Let's. I don't know whether you're probably sitting at home. You'll be sitting at home on your sofa or on your armchair, or if you can, sit yourself as comfortably as you can. See if you can have your feet on the floor. Probably if you're in a sofa or an armchair, see if you can just sit right into the armchair. And then when you're ready, closing your eyes. And it's all a bit surreal, isn't it? Here you are, sitting in front of a computer screen, listening to myself and seeing Jnanavaca on a Monday evening, which is normally our Dharma night. So let's come away from the computer. You probably, like me, you've probably been on Zoom meetings today, or you will be tomorrow. So let's step away from the computer and just come back to the direct sense of the body. So your mind might be all over the place, thinking about the future or worrying about the past, but your body is here right now. So the simplest thing to do is just tune in to the weight of your body. The sensation of support, your feet on the floor, so as best as you can, try to tune into the actual experience of your body, whether your body feels comfortable or uncomfortable. Whatever it is, see if you can feel it. You don't need to think about it or analyze it. There's a weight of your body on the chair. Your feet on the floor, the sensations of your feet. Feeling your hands, and what your hands are touching. And then just see if you can tune into your breath. So your breath is breathing you. You don't need to try to breathe. You can just let the breath come in and let the breath flow out. If you feel some discomfort in the body, there often is, you can imagine breathing into that discomfort. Breathing into any tightness, any constriction. And breathing out, breathing it away, calming the body. Soothing your mind. So you're feeling your breath. The breath massaging your body from the inside. So gathering your awareness around your breath, calming the body, calming the mind. You can have this sense that the breath soothing your mind, smoothing out any tension. Calming your body, calming your mind. And then see if you can expand your awareness to include more and more of your body sensations. So there's the breath, breathing in your body. Calming your body. And you can include into your awareness more and more sensations, extending out to include more and more of your body. Weight of your body again on the chair. Really feeling the support of the chair. Your feet on the floor. then tuning into the sounds around you while staying aware of your body. So we're here in the London Buddhist Centre's main shrine room in Bethnal Green in London. You hear some of the traffic outside. So you can tune into the sounds around you wherever you are, but not losing a sense of your body whilst you do that. Coming back to the weight of your body on the chair. So when you're ready, opening your eyes, coming out of the meditation. Good. So here we are, and I hope that's helped create a bit more sense of settling, of coming into yourself. So what Jnanavaca and I are going to do is we'll just share, I suppose, our reflections on from our own Buddhist point of view of the way things are, how we're responding, I suppose, personally, but also from our own Buddhist practice about how things are. So perhaps I wonder whether we should start a bit sort of personally and just sort of see how the way we are, how are you doing just now?
Yeah, no, I'm well. I feel very fortunate, actually. I live in one of the communities, with Maitreyabandhu and Sanjay, who's here, and David, who's here. There's 10 of us normally. One person's away on solitary retreat, and the Odin. Anyway, there's a lovely atmosphere between us all in the community, and at the moment everybody's well. So it feels a little like we're on retreat together. That feels like a privileged position. I guess I am in a very fortunate position. I guess I've got a secure home, friends around me, and my livelihood's not at risk. So I'm sort of very aware that that's not the case for many people. Many, perhaps, of you have got anxieties about livelihood or loved ones, or maybe you're caring for somebody who's not well at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's an odd sort of, the other side of that for me is an odd sense of unreality. Like our community is in a great state at the moment. We're getting on very well with each other, and today you get the beautiful blossom in the park, the fantastic sunshine, the slight sense of sort of, like you say, being on retreat together, and yet I'm also aware of so much fear, so much difficulty, so much pain around me, and it's sort of weird sense of unreality. A friend of mine on the phone was saying to me just yesterday that he was asking his partner, have I gone mad, or has this really happened? Tell me am I imagining this? It's happening all so fast. It's sort of like a dream, that sort of odd sense of unreality.
We were talking earlier, particularly because the virus is invisible. Walking out, we went for a stroll around the park, and as you say, it's a beautiful day. People were keeping their distance. Actually, people were pretty well behaved. But there is a sense of, where is the threat? I can't see the threat, and yet it's there. Well, part of me knows it's there, and part of me thinks my life is okay, and where's the threat? The invisibility of this little microbe, or whatever it is, feels slightly, adds to this whole surrealness, this sense of unrealness.
It really makes you realise, doesn't it, that our sight sense is so strong. If we can't see it, we don't think it's there.
Well, that's part of it, isn't it? That we construct our world through our senses, and that's the only world we think is real. I mean, intellectually, we know that it's not the only world that's real. There's I don't know, radio waves or whatever's happening now. You can somehow we're transmitting our image to you. There's other things going on, but so often we kind of just assume that the known physical world that I've got is the only reality.
Yeah.
Also, this sense that I don't know, we're living in the constructed nature of our social world. I'm just struck again how society is constructed on ideas, isn't it? And those ideas they're fragile. In fact, they don't have any substance.
Well, I was saying the other night on last Wednesday, the idea of the future, you know, and how, you know, I'm sure you've had this, probably some of you have heard this, but you know, that I've just been deleting things from my diary for the future. So it's like the future is actually being deleted. As you move into it, the future is disappearing. And of course, it wasn't actually there. You sort of weirdly think it is there, and you even kind of rely on it. You think, oh yeah, I'm going to Spain then, I'm going to go to that meeting then, I'm meeting them then, as if that is actually there.
So I think what's happening is we're having to adjust to those ideas crumbling, dissolving. Time sense is one of them. I was just listening to Stephen Fry. He's done a little video about how to cope with anxiety, and one of the things he was saying is that time sense changes when you're at home. And I know that from being on retreat. Time sense changes as we go deeper into ourselves. And one of the teachings of the Dharma is that time is a construct, that there isn't an objective reality that's past, present, future. It's not like that. And I think we're having to come to terms with that in our actual experience. And it's very disorienting. It's very, very disorienting.
I mean, that's one part of it, isn't it? Is that you don't realise how the time sense actually creates your sense of being someone.
Yes, identity.
Yeah,
partly to do with
you
that.
sort of feel like, oh, I know who I am because I was doing that. Now I'm doing this. Tomorrow I'm going to be doing that. And then after that, so it sort of somehow creates a sense of yourself.
And it's not just time sense. I mean, there's other more tangible things like I don't know if your job is under threat, or if you've lost your job, which I hope you haven't. Then suddenly our identity is also shaken. It's not just the economic consequences. It's who are we? That is also under threat.
I mean, the other thing that struck me when we went for our walk in the park is just seeing parents with their children. You know, parents that would normally be at work, and you know that can be great, but it also can be difficult. A friend of ours is just moving house. Hello, Sankaji, I don't know whether you're here. He's just moving house. He's got 3 children. You can imagine the amount of pressure he's under. So suddenly your sense of yourself changes because you'll be living. You know, some of you are, you know, living intensely with your partner now or your children now in a way that you possibly never have done, and that again changes who you think you are. But really, some of these things really make you not know quite who you are.
So I think what you've got is that's been forced on us, on everybody. I was thinking it's a bit like the world is being forced to go on retreat. And on retreat, I mean, it's worse than that, I know, because people are ill and some are dying. But for many people who are not yet directly affected by the illness, it's a bit like isolation is like being on retreat, and you're enforced in that way. And that feels, well, at least as a Buddhist, I'm familiar with what that feels like. There's always a sort of resistance to a change of circumstances. I want to stay with the known and with the familiar. And I know that there's an opportunity. Well,
that's a weird sense of detox, isn't there, as well? Of all the things that you're used to having, you can't have.
Yeah. It's interesting where the mind wants to go, because I immediately think, oh, I'll go to the cinema or go and see a friend or something. And of course, all those things are taken away from us.
And that's sort of just like a retreat. It's interesting that it's like a state of enforced meditation. You know, that just like a retreat, you have because those things are not there,
Yeah.
you're confronted by your mind, aren't you? You're
Yeah.
confronted by your mind, and you don't know your mind very often.
No. So in that, there's an opportunity, isn't there? I mean, I'm struck again by the Buddha to be, Siddhartha, leaving home after the truth of old age, sickness and death had he'd sort of seen them, they'd sunk in, and there was an existential crisis. He was thrown, the Buddha to be, was thrown into an existential crisis, which was the start of the quest.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I think me and most of us were shielded from the existential situation, protected by layers of gadgets and ideas and identities and all sorts of, and there's a conspiracy in our culture to shield each other from what's really happening.
Well, for instance, you really think that you're in control, don't you?
Yes,
you really have, just because it's all on your phone diary or
That's
wherever, you actually think you're in control. You sort of know that you're not,
Yeah,
but you sort of know it and actually don't know it.
that's right.
What's happening now, I think, is you are so not in control.
We're not in control.
It's really, really striking.
And day by day, sometimes hour by hour, the situation is changing. And I don't know about you, but my mind wants to find certainty again.
Yeah, yeah.
And as if I had certainty, then I'd be in control. Then I'd know what to do. If I knew how long we were going to be in this situation, then I'd plan, I don't know, the rest of my life.
You start your diary
That's right.
June or something.
That's right. And I don't know whether the rest of my life is going to be, when does that start? And actually even saying that we'll get back to normality is me wanting to have control. I'm not saying that we won't. All I'm saying is that the mind wants to jump back to the known. And there is no known. From a Dharmic perspective, we're never in control. We never were in control. And why is that important? That's important not just to shake us up and propel us into anxiety. It's important because in that uncertainty, in that sort of existential shake-up, there's an opportunity for freedom. There's something.
Although many people will not feel it's an opportunity, will they? They'll feel it's just a, I suppose I'm a bit nervous of Buddhism sort of stepping in and saying, "Oh, this is really great somehow."
No. I think it's not great. But the Buddha didn't say samsara was great.
No,
You
it
see what I
was a
mean?
burning house.
It was a burning house.
Yeah.
So it's not great. Sickness and death are not great. And Buddhism doesn't try and sugarcoat them.
Yeah.
All it says is, can we look at that?
Yeah.
Can we look at it?
But in what sense do you think it is an opportunity? I suppose there's that sense of being confronted with your mind.
Well, one thing I think that you don't have to be a Buddhist to see this, and I think people are already seeing it. You can see it in if you have to go shopping in the supermarket, you can see there's a sense, I think, a tangible sense, as well as the anxiety, there's a sense of community.
Yeah, there is.
So that's part of the opportunity,
Yeah.
that people are helping each other. There are people who are looking out for each other. A sense, that's one sense of community. But I think even less tangibly, there's a sense that the whole world
It's connected.
is connected.
Yeah.
We're in this together.
Yeah.
We were always in it together, but I think that's becoming more obvious. I think that's part of the opportunity,
Yeah.
that we're connected.
Yeah.
I was watching a little video of a clip of the deserted streets in India. It's another world away, India, and I feel, oh yes, they're somehow having to do the same thing or face the same reality that I'm facing.
Although in some ways you could say, well, yeah, we're connected, but we're all connected because we're all talking about the same thing. Like, one of the things that happens in our community is, every meal time we talk about the virus.
We try and change the subject, don't we?
It's slightly clunkily sometimes.
In a sense, that's the sort of surface level of our connection.
Yeah.
That the same thing's happening. But I do think there's a deeper sense that, I'm sure you've experienced it, or hopefully you've experienced it, of feeling for each other.
yeah.
feeling that you want to help
Yeah.
each other.
There's been a lot of that. I mean, incredible.
That's
Yeah.
part of. But what's wonderful is that that's natural. You don't have to be a Buddhist. You don't have to know anything about the Dharma. It's a natural sense when there's difficulty that people want to respond. That innate ethical sense is part of the opportunity.
Well, a friend of mine who's not a Buddhist, he went off and found some hand gel, the hand cleaner, bought 4 of them and gave 2 away on the way home. And you keep hearing little stories like that of people just spontaneously giving to others.
I mean, another sense that maybe it's too early in this crisis. Maybe this will happen more organically. But I think that what situations of tremendous upheaval like this force us sometimes to look at our priorities. That's another not very often comfortable thing to do, but to really look at what am I doing with my life? What do I want to be doing with my life? What's really important to me? And unless we, I'm afraid that sometimes it's crises that, maybe it's a personal crisis, this is a global crisis, but it's crises sometimes that force us into introspective.
Well, it's often a crisis that brings people to meditation and Buddhism, isn't it?
Yes.
It's some kind of existential thing, breakup of a relationship, a death,
a bereavement, an illness.
That shakes you a bit, shakes you out of a dream of, I don't know, career, money, sex, looks, all those things that we put so much value on.
So I don't mean in a glib way that this is an opportunity. I mean, somehow in a natural way, difficulties confront us.
I mean, the Buddha would say it's an opportunity for wisdom. In what sense could you say anything about that? Cause,
no, goodness, I don't know.
That's surely we were talking earlier about having a samatha and vipassana approach to like the current. I can feel. I don't know whether you feel it, but I can feel like an underlying anxiety with many people, if not everyone, or not even. It's sometimes a bit deeper than anxiety, like more like fear, but it expresses itself in people in very different ways. Some people react to it by getting blasé, some people get quite catastrophic, some people get sort of fawn, in that sense of sort of slightly freezing, other people just distract themselves, binge watching Netflix, but we respond to fear in lots of different ways.
It's interesting you saying samatha and vipassana. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but shamatha, you could say, is about trying to develop calmer, more positive states of mind. And vipassana is then on the basis of that trying to see things as they are. I mean, have a penetrative wisdom approach to experience. So from a shamatha perspective, I think, again, the Dharma has something to say about how do we work with anxiety, how do we work with fear, how do we work with distress, how do we work with loss. And, the meditation you just led, the 5-minute, 10-minute meditation you just led, well, I could feel it made a difference to me.
It calms you slightly.
It calms you slightly.
Yeah, that's right.
I think something about just coming into our bodies, having a felt sense of the actual sensations of our bodies has a calming effect. And I think sometimes it's like, we probably know that. If you've been to a Buddhist centre at all or practicing at all, you'll know that. What I find is that I forget. I know it and I forget.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think I keep needing reminding that, I need to breathe. I need to feel my feet. I need to feel the chair or the cushion under me. And the direct experience of that, whether it's comfortable or uncomfortable, if I can feel it and stay with it, it has a calming effect. That's one way of working with a shamatha way of working.
So let's say a bit about the Vipassana way, let's open up to a bit of questions.
Okay. So maybe a Vipassana way, and this I think is if we're feeling, I don't know, positive enough. If it propels us into more anxiety, then back off, as it were. Then we need more metta. But a Vipassana way of working would be a little bit saying, okay, so what do I know for sure? What is real? What do I assume is real in my world, and what is actually real? What do I really know? So Vipassana way would also be, well, seeing what I can rely on and what I can't rely on. When I assume that I'm going to have a job that I'm doing forever, or when I assume that my body is going to stay well and that I'll grow old, I don't know, gradually and gracefully, to really see that that's just a thought. It's an idea that doesn't have any real reality. So what do I really know? Now, Vipassana way of working keeps asking those questions in order to undermine the delusion that we know what's going on. And it does that because when we can approach the genuine not knowing, that's when a sense of freedom opens up.
And it opens up spontaneously, doesn't it?
It opens up spontaneously.
Yeah, it's not that you make it open up. Once you really face that not knowing feeling, it can open up.
I was hearing from a friend of mine, I mean, it can be natural as well.
Yeah.
I was hearing from a friend of mine, Charlotte, I don't know if you're listening, Charlotte. Anyway, Charlotte was writing to me about caring for somebody who had the virus, and the difficulty of that, and the anxiety of that, and the unknown that was going on. And she ends it by saying she felt deeply alive, deeply alive. And that's a Vipassana.
Yeah,
that's the sort of opportunity that's there.
So let's perhaps pause for that a minute, because it'd be good to hear any questions. I don't know how many people are watching now, but it's really quite odd for us because we're just in this room, this shrine room. So actually, I do know how many people are watching.
There's about 7 of us.
There's about 7 of us, but I'm hoping there's more of you online. So.
Yeah, so we've got over 300 people
300,
watching live.
Welcome everyone. Really good to have you.
Yeah, we've got a question already from Charlene. What do you recommend I do to ramp up my practice while in isolation? Simply meditate longer and more often. I have only been on retreat for up to 4 days. I want to take this time to deepen.
Well, hello Charlene, thanks for asking. What do you think? I think meditation is going to be an essential part.
Although I wouldn't force yourself to extend it.
Not necessarily longer. I think
more often.
More often, if you can meditate two or three times a day, even if it is for short periods. Like that was a very short period.
Yeah, 10 minutes.
I think that will definitely help. I think listening to Dharma, reading Dharma, that definitely helps me.
It helps create a wisdom perspective. You need to catch a wisdom. Wisdom perspective isn't something you learn so much, although there's something of that. You sort of catch it. You catch a perspective on things, and you catch that often from reading Dharma books or Buddhist books or watching online stuff, and that can help.
And sometimes when you read Dharma or listen to it, it's not that you're trying to have new information. You may learn new things, but even if you've heard it all before, somehow hearing the Dharma,
especially in difficult times,
has a tonic effect on the mind. An enlivening effect, an uplifting effect on the mind.
Actually, sometimes in these kind of times, it can go deeper.
Yes.
Because you have a need for it more.
Yes.
Otherwise, you can be looking at the Dharma and it's kind of like chocolates that you're just sort of.
That's right.
Whereas now you have a need.
That's right. That's right.
Let's see if there's any other questions. I don't know about that answer, but it's a good way to start.
Yeah. So someone's asking about re-establishing a practice, but I think you've probably kind of answered that. Somebody else has asked, with the Vipassana approach, where does one really begin with questioning what's real?
Well, I think look at what's happening in your life, not necessarily on the news. I mean, on the news you'll see all sorts of things happening, but look at what's happening in your life and look at what's happening in your mind. So are you worried about your job? Are you worried about your parents? Are you worried about your own health? Are you bored by being stuck in your home? What's actually happening in your life? and then see if you can look at any assumptions that you're making that aren't being expectations or assumptions
Or stories.
that are being contradicted or not met, stories that you're telling yourself. So they are the thing that are not real. Does that make sense? It's,
I mean, the only thing I might add is you don't want to do it in too cerebral way.
sure.
You want to try. I mean, traditionally you have vipassana on the basis of samatha, so you want to certainly have a sort of embodied sense as much as you can.
Yes.
You're not just trying to kind of think your way like a little
Yes.
from the top of your head.
Yes.
It does include thought,
Yes.
but the word reflection is good, isn't it? Because
Yes.
it's more embodied than that.
Yes.
Um,
So look at where the mind is tending to go. So, for example, another example is the future, as you've said. So soon I was due to be on retreat. That's not going to happen anymore. And if my mind keeps going to the fact that it's not happening, well, it's an opportunity to say, look, that's an expectation that was based on nothing.
Or even just ask where is that thing?
Yeah,
You were going to go, I don't know, perhaps you're going to go on holiday, it's supposed to be going on holiday tomorrow.
Yeah.
Where was it? Where is it in reality?
Yes,
where
where
is it
is
now?
Yeah, as Maitreyabandhu was saying, the future doesn't exist, our plans don't exist, the past doesn't exist. And we're left with this very mysterious sense of the present moment, which doesn't exist either. So what's going on there? They're the sorts of things to, if you want a Vipassana practice, they're the sorts of things to look at. But on the basis, as you say, of being as embodied as you can, and ideally on the basis of some metta, some loving kindness.
I've heard it also said sometimes that reflection is a bit like a flock, how a flock of pigeons, they circle. So you have a bit of the reflection, then you just relax again, come back into your body, you appreciate the sunlight, and then you come back to the reflection. So it's dropping it in, it's not trying to push it in or make yourself think things. You just lightly keep coming back to, so what do I think is real? Here are these things I lean on, even like the future, other people, those other people suddenly not near you or they're not acting as you want. But see if you can keep bringing in that reflection.
The other thing that I've been reflecting on is that, the body is part of the natural world. This event that's happening, this virus, is also part of the natural world. That we can't control the natural world. I can't control my body. I can't control anything, actually. Not really.
No.
That's a Vipassana reflection. Because so often we're identified with our bodies and we think we own the body. We think this is my body. I'll move it as I want to. I'll do with it what I want. And actually, that's not real. That's not how things are. This virus is like a teacher. I had a text from one of my teachers, Subhuti, and he said the virus is our guru. It's like a teacher.
Yeah.
And I think it's not trying. It is, if we let it, teaching us something about how we're not in control. We never were in control.
I think he was also saying the future has been cancelled. That's very strange. But that's how it is, isn't it? The future has been cancelled.
It's sort of wiped clean for the whole world.
Yeah, it's unprecedented.
Extraordinary.
Perhaps let's see if there's any other questions.
Yeah, there's lots.
We might run over a bit of time, so we'll probably go a bit beyond it, but not too much.
Yeah, not too much. The Prime Minister's going to speak.
At 8:30, we don't want to get in his way.
Kim Willis asks, if the Buddha were alive right now, what do you think he'd say to us about these times?
Yeah, thanks for that, Kim. I think the Buddha would recognise, he wouldn't recognise our world in terms of the material dimensions of our world.
Like he'd be staggered by this, wouldn't it?
It would be like magic, wouldn't it?
Not staggered.
But he would recognise our existential situation.
Yeah.
And that's what's really going on, that we're confronted by sickness and death and the unknown.
And uncertainty.
He'd recognise that. Yeah. He'd say that, yes, that is the human situation. That is what he saw when he wasn't yet enlightened. That's what he was questing to address, to answer. And he discovered a way out of this human predicament.
Well, he talked about the world being like a burning house, and that you need to get out. How do you? And it's a beautiful symbol, because he imagines that everybody are like children playing,
yes,
which is a beautiful image for humanity.
Yes.
Not bad people, not, but just children playing in a house who don't realise that the house is on fire. So that's what we're like, isn't it? We get our flat whites, we get our croissants, we get our computers. We're like children playing with our toys without realising if the house is on fire. Suddenly we're starting to get a bit of a sense of the smoke.
So the Buddha would definitely recognise that. He'd recognise our habitual superficiality, the fact that I keep wanting to lose myself in trivia, the flat white, the whatever it is. And he'd recognise that is covering over sort of it's futile, but it's trying to cover over a deeper reality, which is much more unknown. Yeah, he'd recognise that. And he'd have a way out. Does that make sense? A genuine a path that leads to genuine fulfillment, genuine freedom, genuine contentment and peace. Genuine fearlessness, because it's not based on the material world and it falling apart, or its potential to fall apart.
Yeah.
Not much to say about that, but let's hear some more.
So Pippa Masters asks, how can those who are currently ill or key workers like nurses who are at risk of burnout care for their minds? Or how can we support them to do so?
Yeah, it's a really important question, thank you. I was just listening to, it was a man called Dr. Jack, who was phoning in onto the other LBC. The other LBC. And he was obviously frustrated, angry, upset that a lot of people didn't realise what the pressures that health workers were under, and how many people in his eyes, and I think he's right, were not taking this seriously and were not observing social distancing, were not isolating when they needed to isolate. And he was saying that is going to cost lives, including lives of healthcare professionals. So that I found very, very sobering. That's certainly stayed with me and staying with me. So I think one of the things we can do to help is follow the government guidelines and be as strict as is necessary around those guidelines. I think the other thing is, if you know somebody, a friend or family member who is working in the NHS, in the health service, then see what you can do to support them. Even if you're isolated in your home, you can still text them, you can still, I don't know, WhatsApp them and say, thinking of you. I think that will help. I've been saying that to lots of people, that I'm thinking of you. I'm not going to be able to help physically, but I'm thinking of you. I'm bearing you in mind, particularly when I meditate. I'm trying to do that.
And it's funny, I was chatting to a friend just earlier on, and I just happened to say, I'm so impressed with your judgment on that. It's such a good judgment on that. It's really good to have you around. And I was, what it's like when you say something like something, you don't think it's going to mean very much to them. But, I could feel that had helped in a way. I mean, the other side, they mentioned burnout. The other side of it is, yes, you do need a routine. I think when you live at home, it's, when you're starting to live at home and work at home, it's so easy for everything to drift and for all your routines to go. So I think particularly you need a morning routine where you're meditating.
I'm rubbish at morning routines, but he's just saying that deliberately to have a go at me. But.
Well, he's just a bit later. He does have a morning routine, just a bit later, not quite as spiritual as mine, but that's fine, that's all fine.
We're talking about health professionals.
Sorry, health professionals, yeah. So you do need to look after yourself, but looking after yourself is doing what's in your own genuine best interest. So don't you, and I know, that getting anxious about all this and catastrophizing about this, tempting though it is and inevitable though it is, it's not in my interest, and it's not in the interest of those around me. To really look after yourself, you're trying to ask yourself, genuinely in my interests. And, you know, falling out with my partner that I'm living with just now because we're cooped up, that's not in my interest. Let's try and get better at that. Getting bad-tempered with the children, actually, tell you what, we all do it, but it's not in anyone's interest. Let's try and find a way. Use this as a time to thrive. What is really in my interests? Not just in the heat of the moment. And the it's very. I mean, we all do that. I mean, it's not that we're to blame, really, but I think that's one way I think about it.
But yes, I want to support as much as we. Part of why I want to carry on trying to communicate the Dharma is that a lot of people are not in the privileged situation that I'm in. They are on the front line, particularly people in the health service. And if they can have 5 minutes of meditation, then that might be something that contributes.
Well, we live with Dharma, who's a GP, and you know he's very much in the front line. Sangaji is in the front line. Pia's in the front line. They're all health professionals.
Yes.
And well, you want to support them as much as you can.
Yes. And it might be that they're in this for the long haul. Certainly, that's what the politicians are saying. And those healthcare professionals are going to be at the front line for a long time.
Yeah.
So it really is important that we try and support them. And what I'm hearing so far is that one massive way that we can support them is by following the government guidelines and staying indoors as much as possible.
Let's have one more question, let's say, and then we'll round off if we can.
Okay, so I've got 3 questions that are kind of the same theme. So Alice talks about what happens. You know, how can you still have relationships with people, friends, family, partners when everything's shut down? Peter Giblin also asks about this kind of maintaining contact with friends and family, and Eva asks about advice for maintaining communities in this time as well.
Yes, well, I've been thinking about it because one of the things that Buddhism says really clearly is that the mind is a sense. We tend to think of having senses and a body and a mind that's just like a computer that just sort of, you know. But Buddhism thinks of mind as a sense, so that when I think of you, in some way that we don't understand, my mind reaches out with you. At least that's how I understand it. You know, like if I say Michael Jackson, somehow he's there. I think we need a new kind of valuing of the mind. The mind is an incredible thing. We don't understand the mind. We use this word mind as if we know what we're talking about. Actually, we don't know about it. We don't know what it is. It's as mystical a word as Buddha, really, because we don't know what the mind is. We need to know that we don't know what the mind is. It's not. It doesn't look like it is just this fancy computer that we're trying to replicate. But when I think of my elderly mother living in Headley in Arden, she's 84. I mean, obviously I ring her regularly, but just my thinking and my well-wishing to her and to my very large extended family. Well, perhaps our mind does reach out in some way. I'm rather sceptical by nature, so I don't know, but what I do know is that we don't know what the mind is. We use that word in a throwaway sense, but it's actually, we no idea what we mean by it.
I think that this question follows on from the last one in a way. What I mean is that I think you're right, that the mind is the sense, and we so underestimate the power of that, the power of staying connected at a mind level. But also, we need to be doing what we can for each other. I mean, maybe you can't do anything if you're stuck in your house and isolating, then maybe you have to resort to texting people, ringing people. You can still do that. If you have housemates or family that you're living with, well, look after each other. Certainly in the community that I'm in, people are definitely looking after each other. I feel a sense of solidarity. And then, of course, there's neighbours and people around you that might be more vulnerable than yourself. Maybe we can try and just support each other in that wider sense. So there's a practical way of forming community, but also the mind sense. That's not impractical. That's not. It might be less tangible, but it's not unreal. But the reason I say it follows on from the last question, I think the two things that we can do, and we need to do, is to look after ourselves, look after our own minds as much as we can. And Buddhism has all sorts of tools for doing that, as we've touched on, in a way to work at a shamatha level, but also, if we can, to start penetrating into what's really important, what's real in life. And then also we need to be going out to each other and forming a sense of community. And I find it really interesting that at a time when most of us are cut off from friends and family and loved ones, there's also more of a sense of community, of all of us being in the same boat.
There's an opportunity to do both more, isn't there?
Yes.
You know, to go inward more and reflect
Yes.
and meditate,
Yes.
and to go outward imaginatively and
Yes.
in any other way that we can,
Yes.
more
Practically, if we can.
and create by our actions of body, speech, and mind the community we want.
Yeah.
So look, perhaps we should start to think of rounding up. We didn't want to just finish by, just say, okay, that's it tonight. We wanted to finish by, let's just close our eyes again, and Jnanavaca is going to lead us in call and response in the transference of merit.
Can I just say before we do that if you can donate money, that would be very, very valuable to the LBC particularly. It's always, this whole centre and the whole of Triratna works on a culture of generosity, of people just freely giving their time and their energy and resources to spread the Dharma. And at a time like this, well, as many of you will also be feeling, there's a real uncertainty in economic terms as well as existential terms. So if you can give, that'd be fantastic. You just press the link in the description beneath this.
Yeah.
And particularly if you can give monthly, that would be fantastic. That would then enable us to plan in this very, very uncertain world and make sure that we can keep communicating the Dharma as fully as we are able to. Great, thank you. But let me finish. Let's finish.
Yeah.
So we're going to recite the transference of merit and self-surrender, which is the final verse of the sevenfold puja, and we're going to try and do that in call and response. So I don't know how that will work. I think there's probably
90-second lag.
a 90-second lag, and it might all be very messy. But if you can, it'd be really great if you can join in. You're just repeating the lines after me. It won't probably end up being unison. There's a few of us here.
I won't be able to hear them anyway.
We won't be able to hear them. You won't be able to hear each other. So that's all right. Oh yeah, that's all right, isn't it?
Yeah,
Flat mics might be a bit freaked out, but
That's all right. Nobody will hear us. So
no, nobody will hear us.
you can sort of not worry about doing it in unison. Just do it, yeah, in call and response. There's a few of us here, so you might hear some voices from here in call and
Do you want
response.
to say a bit about what
The transference of merit and self-surrender.
what the spirit of it?
The spirit of it. So the spirit of it is very much saying that it's lack of self-centeredness at its peak. It's saying that I want to serve all living beings for not just this lifetime, but for all lifetimes. It's the Bodhisattva ideal. And in that service and in that surrendering of all self-concern, there's a freedom.
And we usually, when you do it, you put your hands together like that. It's called, which is like a prayer mudra, and all that means is I really wish this. That's all it means. So people get sort of a bit funny about things like this, but it just means this is my way of physically expressing I wish this. I want this to be the case.
And intention has an effect. So this is the highest intention in Buddhism. So let's finish with this. And thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you for tuning in. Hope we can do it again.
Transference of merit and self-surrender. May the merit gained.
May the merit gained
In my acting thus.
in my acting thus
Go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings.
go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings.
My personality throughout my existences.
my personality throughout my existences,
my possessions,
and
my merit in all three ways.
my merit in all three ways.
I give up without regard to myself,
I give up without regard to myself,
for the benefit of all beings.
for the benefit of all beings,
Just as the earth and other elements
just as the earth and other elements
are serviceable in many ways
are serviceable in many ways
to the infinite number of beings,
to the infinite number of beings,
inhabiting limitless space.
inhabiting limitless space.
So may I become
So may I become
that which maintains all beings,
that which maintains all beings,
situated throughout space,
situated throughout space,
so long as all have not attained
so long as all have not attained
to peace.
to peace.